Hello everyone! This is the second video in my series about how to deal with blind people. And in this video I'm going to talk about something that people have actually asked me quite a bit about whenever I've done like AMAs on Reddit or just in general, and that is dating and sex. So yeah, if you're faint of heart, I guess maybe you should stop watching here. I'm gonna not be too graphic, of course, but yeah. So as one can probably imagine, dating when you're a blind person, or I guess a person with any kind of disability, isn't always a fun thing. For me, I always kind of had two things against me, I guess, against me if you can phrase it that way. One was my disability, and the other was the fact that I'm a girl who doesn't like normal girl things. So, you know, not really into makeup, not really into, you know, like rom-coms and soap operas and whatever. Like, I'm more about like video games and punk rock and hockey and, you know, my things. So on top of being disabled, I'm also a bit odd, I guess. And so, you know, when a lot of guys, when I was younger at least, when I was, you know, dating, you know, teens and early 20s, like a lot of guys, they have an idea of the girl they want in their head. You know, she's pretty, she's maybe sporty, she's, you know, doing her own thing, and, you know, none of those girls in their head have a disability. And that's something that you kind of have to accept when you are young and disabled, in that there are going to be people who simply are so taken off guard by the prospect of having a blind or deaf or physically challenged girlfriend or boyfriend that they just don't even know how to react when, okay, maybe they meet you like at a bar, or they meet you on OkCupid or Tinder or whatever, and they don't notice right away, so of course they think you're pretty, and they think, you know, how cool it is that a girl likes video games or whatever, and then it sort of comes up that you don't see very well, and a lot of times that's where it ends. And it hurts, but at the same time, I understand. Or at least I try to. Because, yeah, there is sort of a certain kind of difference in a disabled relationship versus a relationship with two abled people or two-sighted people. You know, for example, you can't turn to me and say, hey, you know, I'm gonna have a few drinks later, can you pick me up? Because I can't. And you can't turn to me and, you know, ask me to, you know, read some small text or in like a book or something, because you know, I can't. And you can't rely on me to independently do certain things. So you kind of have to accept when you're dating a blind person that you are always going to be the one that drives. And that's, for a lot of people, a bit hard. If you live in a country like Finland, where if you live in the city, you know, a car isn't really necessary anyway, it's less of an issue. But growing up in the countryside in the US, you know, a lot of guys just didn't like the idea that if they wanted to see me, they had to drive to wherever I was. So for a lot of people, that was a bit of a turnoff. The other thing is, you know, I guess there's a bit of a stigma in that when some people are talking about the new people that they're, you know, connecting with on Tinder or whatever, you know, they show each other pictures and they tell stories like, oh, she's so good at this or that and she's so interested in that. But, you know, if suddenly you were like, yeah, she's blind, your friends might be taken a bit off guard. And again, I mean, that's maybe not, okay, it's not a good thing at all, but that is reality. You know, and a lot of it just has to do with how the media portrays blindness. Often we are the joke. We are the comic relief. You know, we are Stevie Wonder with thick glasses and a cane, and it's funny, and you know, like Family Guy had a whole episode, I think, about Brian dating a blind girl, and it was super cringeworthy. I have to admit, like I do like Family Guy, and I wasn't like offended or anything, but it was a bit, you know, odd, I will say, because it's not easy. It's not easy. You can connect with someone on such like a good level, you know, and have really good conversations and really good physical chemistry, and then just have them not be able to see past the blind thing. And then you're like, okay, well, I just invested all of this energy and time thinking about this person and thinking about our future, and then it turns out that they're just sort of hung up on the fact that, you know, you're not normal. And then you are back at square one. And you're, again, out there meeting new guys and wondering the whole time, like, if it's safe to become attached to this person or not, because are they just gonna run when it hits them that you are blind? And it's hard. It's a hard thing, I would say. The other thing that I have encountered that has been a bit awkward is that there are people who actually have a fetish for this. So dudes whose whole sexual fantasy is fucking a blind chick. And that's weird. That's weird. I try not to kink shame. You know, I'm a pretty open-minded girl myself, but my disability should not be something that you get off on. That's just strange. There was an incident, maybe, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, where I met a guy through my friend, and I thought he was super interested in me. I thought things were going forward, and then I found out he was only getting close to me so he could find out what sex with a blind girl would be like. And that was just horrible. Honestly, a really terrible feeling. Because, as I said, my struggle should not be your fetish. Ever. Under any circumstances. I haven't slept with, like, other blind people, but I can say, at least for myself, that I'm pretty sure sex with me, in that sense, is no different than sex with anyone else. Obviously, I have my own likes and dislikes, as would anyone, but there's no added element when it comes to that. That is one place where I like to think that we blind people are no different than anyone. And this is sort of a sensitive and difficult topic to, you know, talk about. But I think it's important that I address it because, oh, people suck. So the biggest advice I can give to anyone who is talking to a girl or a guy who has recently told you that they're blind, or you know from the get-go that they're blind, and you like them but you're not sure, is try to see how they function. Really, like, do stuff with them. Take them, you know, go with them to the movies, go with them to the mall, go do some physical activities with them, you know, go to a gig, like, just do stuff that you would do with any other date and see how they do it. And if their difference in how they do things is really too great for you, if it really is just too much, then be honest. Don't be mad. Don't be angry about it. Don't be harsh, but just be honest. Because it's going to hurt. But that person may not understand in the moment, but they will eventually. Because I and other blind people can't force you to look past it. And we can't pretend that we do everything the same way and that people are going to be able to accept it. That being said, I really encourage you to try. I encourage you to understand that our blindness has never once been our choice, and that you know, if you can get past us looking really closely at things and, you know, maybe getting a few stares here and there in public, if the emotional and physical bond is strong, then over time those things will just seem like nothing and you'll just get used to it, and you'll just adjust to how that person does things, and you know, you might eventually just see it as a quirk, which I like to think that the guys who've stuck with me have eventually just sort of seen it as a quirk and nothing more. Because, you know, we are people who deserve love, and we do have a really difficult time finding people who will look past it. So if you're not sure about someone, you really like them, but you're not sure how you can handle it, try. And if you can't get past it, then, you know, no one can force you to love someone. No one can force you to be with someone. It's not ableist to not be able to look past it. It's ableist to write someone off completely because of it. But it's not ableist to try and then realize that the adjustments to lifestyle is not something that you can cope with. So if I'm using Reptar again as an example, what would be wrong is if I said to Reptar, I can't date you because you're a dinosaur. That's horrible. And then Reptar would be sad. But if I was like, okay, I've never dated a dinosaur before, and I take Reptar out, and we have a nice time, and I realize that Reptar is actually really cute and really nice and really pretty, then, you know, I would try really hard to look past the fact that, okay, dinosaurs do things a bit differently. You know, his arms are a little bit short and bent kind of weirdly, but, you know, I would try to look past it because the connection is so strong. But if I could look past it, or couldn't look past it, I would say to Reptar, listen, this is difficult for me. I really like you, but I'm just not sure if I'm capable of the adjustment to dating a dinosaur. I respect you a lot as a person, and I love what we have, but I'm not sure if I can if I can handle this. And Reptar might be hurt, Reptar might be sad, Reptar might say things out of anger, but deep down Reptar will understand. And I think that's really important, that you're honest. But the other big thing is that if you match with like a blind girl on Tinder, or you meet a blind girl on OkCupid, or guy, or non-binary person, or whatever, if you meet a blind person anywhere and you connect with them and you think they're pretty, what's not okay is to go to your friends and be like, yeah, I met this blind person, isn't that funny? And then just sort of take them on dates and string them along for lulz, because that's just shitty. You know, and I will say, like, it definitely, at least in my case, it definitely takes a certain kind of guy or girl, I guess, to be with a disabled person, because to an extent you do become a little bit of a caretaker. I don't want to say like full on, but like, you know, you do help. You become a helper to that person, you know. In my case, you know, my boyfriend drives me around and he picks me up from places, and you know, he helps me read stuff, and he helps me fill out forms, and he helps me do stuff, you know, that if I wouldn't have him would otherwise probably need to be done by like a paid helper. So, you know, it's understandable from that perspective as well. If you just want someone who doesn't need you in that way as a partner, and then again, like I personally can't fault you for that. I really can't. The other big thing I wanted to mention in regards to that is more specific to people who are blind for genetic reasons or disabled for genetic reasons. The most hurtful thing that's ever happened to me in my dating life was when I had someone break off our sort of budding relationship because their parents were concerned about blind grandchildren. And first of all, that is not something you should be thinking about when you are first getting involved with someone. That's super weird. But second, I mean, for fuck's sake, like, again, we can't help it, and there's also no really kind of guarantee that when you are dealing with someone with a genetic problem, if that gene is going to get passed on or not. There's so many layers, like, just don't think about that. I guess if you're like super religious or something and you only date people who you plan on marrying and having children with, I kind of get it, but even then, that's just wrong. Like, it's just not okay. And yeah, my daughter didn't end up having the same genes, and it sucks, and I feel bad enough about that without needing some fucking person's parents who don't even know me questioning the purity of their future grandchildren. Like, fuck off. So my point really with that is, be kind. This goes back to my original video. It's all in your approach. It's all in how you bring things up. It's all in how you say things. And it's all in the way you ask questions. You know, the reality is there aren't that many young blind people. Most of us are older, and those of us who are young have been sheltered quite a lot. And my next video is going to be about raising a blind child, but I'll allude to it a little bit here. Most of us have been quite sheltered. So dating in that regard is hard enough when you just aren't exposed to things, and at no point in your life have you really been encouraged to lead a normal life. So we have a lot to deal with and a lot to adjust to. And if you do connect with us or one of us, and you know, the like I said, the emotional connection is there, you like the same things, the sex is good, like, just try to see past it. Really, don't do it out of pity, but do it out of being a good person, because in every relationship, you know, to an extent, people make adjustments to, you know, if they have like a certain person in their head or a certain type in their head, and they meet someone who fits like 8 out of 10 of those characteristics, they're not going to not be with them because of 2. So if you meet the perfect partner and they just so happen to not see well, if they're perfect in every other way, they just don't see, are you really gonna just throw that all away over one little thing? You wouldn't do it over hair color, you wouldn't do it over, you know, physical strength, you wouldn't do it over, I don't know, like music taste. Okay, maybe I would. But it's, you have to weigh it against everything else. And the idea of being single now actually stresses me the fuck out. But it was really rough back then. But I do have to say that being single in Finland was definitely a much nicer experience than being single in the US. Finnish guys and girls are way more open and way more sort of accepting of people with differences than American young people were at the time when I was single in the US. It was actually terrible. And I don't know, was it just Northeast Pennsylvania, because it's a terrible place anyway, or was it just the fact that the people who are interested in what I'm interested in ended up being assholes? I don't know why that would work, because you would think that people who like hardcore would be, you know, and punk and stuff would be a bit more open. I don't know. I had a really bad time though. And in Finland, it's way more easy. I've rarely run into situations here where guys have just straight up written off any dates or one night stands or relationships or anything just because I can't see. So I hope this video wasn't too much information for everyone. I hope you got something out of it. You know, and again, I have to sort of stress that all these opinions are mine. Other blind people might not even agree with me. I don't know. This is all just me and my experiences and how I feel. So yeah, definitely tell me what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and share. And hopefully I'll be able to make a couple more videos in this series for you. And yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry if this was too much. And yeah, see ya. Reptar wants to say goodbye.